What would you do if you won $1 million lottery? When I asked this question to myself, I was surprised with my answer. I would pay off the mortgage on my primary home. So we'll talk about that and more in today's video. So let's get started. So in today's video, we'll be talking about two things. Why do I want to pay off my mortgage early? And we'll do the mortggage maths. Is it better to pay off your mortgage early or invest that money into the stock market? What would it mean in 30 years, 25 years? We'll talk all about that. So first, let's do the mortgage maths on my particular home. I purchased the home for $1.2 million. This is my forever home. I'm going to live in it till the time we decide to downsize or live forever, whatever, right? So we don't know what happens in 20 years, but at least for the next 20 years, this is our home. 20% down payment is what we did. Interest rate is slightly higher for me right now because I have a B-lender mortgage, but this year I'll be changing it to a normal bank mortgage. Let's assume the interest rate is 4.5% because that's what, if you were buying with a bank, I'm self-employed, but if I was employed, I would buying with a bank, my interest rate would be around that. And let's say I take a 30-year amortization. I took a 30-year amortization. My loan is $960,000. It's slightly lower now because it started in September last year. The monthly mortgage payment on the home will be $4,864, and if I don't do any prepayments, if I don't do anything for the next 30 years, would be paying almost $800,000 in interest. That's 1.2, which is my principal, plus $800,000, so $2 million to make this house my own. Now, this number looks big, but that's not the reason why I want to prepay the mortgage, not the primary reason why I want to prepay my mortgage. Now, this is the budgeting tool that I've discussed many times, in the video, in different videos that I've done. Now, this is part of the retirement calculator that I do with every single client. This is a one-to-one call that happens, so there's no link in the description because it's very dynamic, this file. But I'll talk about something which you can do on your Excel as well. My mortgage payment, let's say, is $4,864, $550 is the property tax, and then I have listed down all my expenses here that come to about $8,200 a month. This includes my cash flow negative on my condo as well, which is $700. Then I spend about $1,000 on shopping. It's slightly low, but I'm a business owner, so sometimes it's a little bit higher as well. Eating out, I have a lot of family at home. We do Uber Eats and stuff like that, so that's $1,000. Plus, after a kid, we are cooking less, so that's where it goes. And then we travel as well 2 times a year, and that's about $500 a month, which is $6,000 a year. And this comes to almost $10,000 of overall expenses. And my overall rent or mortgage, so in my case, it's a mortgage, that comes to almost 45%, if I'm not mistaken, of my total expenses. So the biggest reason why I want to be mortgage free is that my mortgage payment makes 45% of all monthly expenses, which is massive. I can only imagine if I did not have the $5,000 mortgage payment, I could do so much with that money. I could travel, I could invest more. I'll have a lot of peace of mind, which is also important. Plus, I can retire and be financially free early, which is exactly why when Simran asked this question to me, what would you do if you had $1 million lottery? I was like, immediately, I didn't even take 2 seconds, and I said, I'll pay off my mortgage. And that just changed the way I was thinking. Now I want to be financially free by 50. After a kid, I'm 37 right now, so that's 13 years. I'll talk about how I'll do that. But the biggest thing is, again, like I said, it's peace of mind. It's guaranteed return. It's a perfect defense. There's no guarantees of life. After Aryan is born, I'm like, what happens if I'm not able to work? What happens if I don't have the income that I have right now? And that has also led to that change, to that shift in my brain that I need to at least pay off my home before 50 or around 50s, so that I can play, while I'm playing offense with my business, with my investing, I also play a little bit of defense and pay off my home, even though mathematically it might not make sense. And we do the math on this as well. Now, before I do the math, how much to prepay? Now, the rule of thumb that I tell all my clients is that you should prepay minimum 1 additional mortgage payment every year. So if my mortgage payment is $4,800, that's $4,800 of additional mortgage payment lump sum that I should pay every year. You could do $400 per month, which equals $4,800 as well for the entire year. But that's the minimum that you should do. That would help you prepay your mortgage 4 to 5 years early, which is amazing, right? So most of us, are in our mid 30s. Now that might, it would take about 30 years to pay off the mortgage if you have a 30-year loan, but it would be nice to pay off a little bit earlier, say at 60, so that there's a chance that we might be able to retire 5 years early. So that's a base minimum that I recommend all my clients, like a blanket thing. If you are watching this video, have a mortgage, or you just started, started your home, ownership journey, I would say that you should take out at least 1 mortgage payment every single year and make it towards your home. But it also depends on when you want to retire. If someone wants to retire at 65, I'm 37. If I want to retire at 65, it's not crazy. I have a 30-year mortgage. I have 28 years to pay it down. Even if I make $100, $200 a month of additional payment, I'll be able to make it work. But if I have to retire at 50, the math will be very, very different. Now, let's do the math on this. So in my retirement calculator, I also have a mortgage payoff calculator, and I have a few numbers here. But let's say, and again, like this is not a calculator which is in the description. This is one-on-one with my clients, but I would recommend that you can use Dave Ramsey calculator. I'll link it in the description. You can do the same numbers there. It's just that this sheet is so intermingled with one another that will require a 2-hour video to explain this entire Excel, and that's why I do it one-on-one with my clients. Anyways, that was a side note. Let's talk about my mortgage. So $960,000 is my mortgage, 30-year amortization, 4.5% is the interest rate, $4,800 and change is my mortgage payment. Let's say I make $400 per month, which is one additional payment per month. So $4,800 divided by 12. So $400 per month of additional payment that I make every single month, let's assume. And I do not increase that payment every year, right? So with inflation, you would want to increase it by 5%, 10%. I don't do any of that. And I would save almost 4 years, like I said, 4 to 5 years. I would pay off my mortgage early. Plus, I'll also save about $130,000 of interest. So instead of paying $791,000 that I showed in the slide as well, I'll be paying $660,000 of interest, which is still a lot, but it's still a lot lower than what I would pay if I don't make that additional payment. So it's as simple as that, right? So you make one additional payment and you're able to save $130,000 in interest. Now let's try to change these numbers a little. I'll go back to my sheet, and it's very slow right now. Let's say I was going to retire at 57. So my original plan was that I want to retire at 57, so 20 years from now, which is now moved to 50 years. Now, there are reasons for that, but let's just take 57 for now, which was almost 5 to 7 years earlier than I would normally retire. So 57 is my new number. And if I go to mortgage payoff calculator, I have now 20 years to pay off my mortgage. So what this means is that now an additional payment will no longer cut, and I'll probably have to do more payments per month. So let's take $1,500 per month. Let's say I do off additional payment, and now I'm able to pay off my mortgage 11 years early. That's, okay, let's just move this to $1,400. Again, you can change this. I think it will be about $1,250. So if I make $1,250 per month of additional payments, I can actually retire at 57 because now I will be able to pay off my mortgage early. This actually amounts to how much? $15,000. And if you remember my retirement plan, the video that I made, I'll link that in the description as well. You would know that every birthday, I said that I'll be making a $15,000 payment towards my home, and that's how I got this. It was this calculator that helped me do that. Now, like me, you can either make a lump sum payment of $15,000 or whatever that amount is, or you can convert that into a monthly installment towards your principal, and you can actually call your bank and make those payments every single month as well. Just depends on who you are and what you want to do. As per this original plan, I will prepay my mortgage in 20 years, plus I'll save almost $300,000 of interest. So instead of $800,000, now I'm paying almost $500,000 of interest, which is amazing. Now, the big question is that, let's say if you were not to pay off, let's say I was not making $1,250 or $1,000 per month of additional mortgage payment every single month, and I would investing that $1,000 towards S&P 500, what would those numbers look like? So what I've done is I've compared 30 years. So if I want to prepay the mortgage in 30 years versus 20 years, I've just compared the numbers. What I've taken is an average loan amount of $750,000, not my loan amount. And my mortgage payment at 4.5% interest rate at 30-year amortization would come to about $3,800. Let's say those are your numbers. In the first scenario where you do not do anything, no additional payments, nothing, you do not make any additional payments per month, so it's $0. Monthly, you invest about $2,000 in S&P 500. Let's say that's the money that you have slated for S&P 500 or investing in the stock market. In year 1 to 20, it will be about $2,000. In year 21 to 30, it will not be very different. So you are continuously doing for the next 30 years, $2,000 per month. And in 30 years, you would have almost $2.8 million in S&P 500 and a paid off house in 30 years. And your overall interest savings will be $0 in this case because you did not make any additional payments towards your primary home. Now let's compare this to if you were to pay off the home in 20 years, and instead of investing $2,000 into S&P 500, what you do is you split that into $1,000 in S&P 500 for the first 20 years and $1,000 per month towards your mortgage payment for the first 20 years till the time you are mortgage free. Because if you are investing this $1,000 every single month, and we can do the math here as well if you want to. So let's say you have $750,000 of mortgage, 30 years, 4.5. Let's say you make $1,000 per month of payment, and you see that you are saving almost 10 years in time, and you are also saving about $235,000 in interest. So that's how I got these numbers. So $1,000 is going towards the mortgage, $1,000 is going towards S&P 500, but after 20 years, you have the entire money, the $1,000 that you were investing in the S&P 500, plus this mortgage payment of $3,800. All this can go into S&P 500 from year number 21 to 30. If you do the maths like this, in 20 years, so once you're mortgage free and you have been investing only $1,000 towards your S&P 500 fund, you would have just around $572,000. Again, I've taken an 8% year-on-year return. You can use any calculator to do this. And in 30 years, after you have changed your $1,000 budget to $4,800 because now you don't have a mortgage payment and you are redirecting that mortgage payment towards S&P 500 for the last 10 years, you would end up with $2.1 million, which is way less than if you were not making additional mortgage payments. But you'll have interest savings on your home of $235,000 because you have been making payments towards your home and therefore you have paid less interest. So if you compare these two calculations, you would fall short of $500,000. That would be the price that you pay to pay off your home earlier and potentially retire early. The price that you pay is almost $500,000 of opportunity cost that would have gone into S&P 500. However, I want us to look at things very differently. I'm greedy, right? I want to make the same $2,000 investment towards S&P 500 and be able to make $1,000 of additional payments towards my home. And all I need to figure out is how can I make an additional $12,000 per year in order to achieve everything? Because if you look at these numbers, if I'm able to make the $1,000 of additional payment per month and able to do the $2,000 of S&P 500 investment, I would end up with almost $3.3 million in S&P 500 plus an interest saving of $235,000, which is almost $3.5 million, which would put you well above average when it comes to retirement. So the big question to ask here is, how can I make $12,000 of additional money every single year? And the answer to this is not always side hustle. The answer to this is not always starting a business. The answer to this, in most cases, is looking at what we are doing right now. I'll give you an example. So I was doing this retirement planning call, the Excel sheet that I showed you for one of my clients after their mortgage closed, and they were a little bit stressed, they wanted to pay off the mortgage early. They also wanted to invest, and they were confused, what to do, right? So they had about $2,500 of budget to invest in the stock market that would allow them to retire 5 years early, and they also wanted to pay off their mortgage 10 years early. And I was like, okay, let's just look at your income, let's just look at everything, and I'll give you the numbers here. So this is a fidelity.ca. I'll link this calculator below. But what they were doing is they were not making much of RRSP contribution. Like I said, you don't always have to do anything in order to save money. So $120,000 is their employment income. So I'm actually using real numbers here, and both of them were making almost the same. So $110,000 was made by the wife, $120,000 was made by the husband. They had some obligations back home, so they were saving less, but needless to say, they were being very, very prudent with their finances. They had their TFSAs maxed out. Amazing couple who are doing really well with finances. If you look at the $120,000 of income, let's say they were in Ontario. If you calculate this, your tax liability would be about $29,890. You would have already paid that as part of your monthly income that you get. However, the one gap that I saw in the finances was that they had a very healthy emergency fund of almost 12 months of their expenses, which is more than enough. But still, they were saving about $2,000 a month every single, and that was going towards their emergency fund or their cash account. And I was like, why are we doing that? Instead of that, why don't we just invest that money? Let's say $10,000. So let's say, they were saving $2,000, that amounts to about $24,000. Instead of saving that $24,000 on top of the emergency fund that we have, why don't we just each invest $10,000 into RRSP? So if you look at this, let's say the person number one invested $10,000 in RRSP. And if you look at this, they'll get a tax return of $4,246. Same for the wife. She was earning $110,000. And if she made the $10,000 contribution, she would also get a $3,451 of tax return. And that, if you just club together, that's almost $7,500 to $8,000 of tax return that you can simply get by investing excess savings that you have into RRSP and getting the tax refund, and then using that tax refund to pay off your mortgage early. So coming back to this calculator, earlier they were paying almost one mortgage payment, let's say $300 per month, and being 4 years early on their mortgage payoff. Now, because of that $7,500 of saving, that divided by 12 is another $600. They are now able to do $900 per month. So if you just you can do it one time as well and be mortgage free almost 10 years earlier. So when this client came to me with the problem of, I probably have to make more money, I have to do some contracting work, a second job, and when I looked at their finances, I was like, you don't have to do any of that. All you need to do is reallocate your resources into RRSP, take the tax refund and put that back into your home, and you'll be able to achieve your retirement 5 years early while paying off the house 10 years early. So talking about myself, how do I change my behavior in investing if I have to retire at 50 and not 65? So if I were to retire at 65, that would be very simple for me because I already own a primary home. All I need to do is one additional payment, which is $4,800 every single year. That's something that I can easily do right now. I'm doing $15,000 in fact now. So I would be mortgage free in 26 years and I have about 28 years to retire. So I'm 37 right now, plus 28 is 65. So this is great, right? So I just make one additional payment and I'm done. I already invest $2,500 per month. I used to until last year. Now I'm investing $5,000 per month. I'll tell you why. But all I need to do is invest $2,000 per month for the next 28 years. And I already have a lot of investments, almost $100,000 of investment. And if all that grows by 8% year on year, I would have a portfolio of almost $3.3 million at 65 and I can draw 4% from it every single year while this portfolio grows by over 4% and therefore never exhausts in theory, I can actually take out almost $135,000 per year, and a lot of this it will be in TFSA, which will be not. Apart from this, I actually do not require any investment properties and I can just live off CPP and OAS. Right now, an average CPP and OAS, if you just, add these benefits, will be 1536 for an average Canadian per month. At 2% inflation for two people, I've actually made the video on CPP and OAS. If you want, you can just watch that. Just search on my channel. I'll also link that in the description. But the income from this at 2% inflation at 65, and me and Simran are both 65 for two people, that means that will be about $64,000 per year. And if you add this all up, I'll be very close to my target of $200,000 per year of passive income at retirement. And if you're wondering how I got to the $200,000 per year of number, that's the entire thesis that I have. If you go to my website, you'll see that I want to retire people with $5 million. If you take a 4% of that, if you had $5 million in cash, let's say, or investments in, let's say, S&P 500 or whatever, if you take 4% of that, that comes to about $200,000 per year. Now, obviously, there is diversification involved, and you cannot just invest in S&P 500. You can essentially, and a lot of my clients do, but I personally want diversification. So my entire thesis of existence is that I want to retire you with $200,000 of passive income or $5 million of assets, which can actually generate $200,000 per year of passive income on retirement. Anyways, coming back to this, instead of retiring at 65, let's say I want to retire at 57, I'll have to change things differently. I'll have to do things differently because now I'll not be getting any CPP and OAS, because you only get it till when you're 60, and OAS you get only when you are 65. So now instead of prepaying only one mortgage payment, which is $4,800 per year, I'll now have to make $15,000 per year of additional payments to pay off my house in 20 years. Because now I'm 37, I want to retire in 20 years. In order to do that, I have to make $15,000 per year of additional payments. My stock investing budget has to increase to double, which is crazy, right? I'm just shaving off 8 years from my retirement, and I have to double my investing budget. Again, I'm taking a very, conservative 8% year-on-year return. The portfolio would turn out to be about $2.8 million. My income would be about $113,000 per year. Again, taking the 4% here. And I'll also have to buy 3 cash flow properties with an NOI, which is a net operating income. Net operating income, if you don't understand, is basically your rent minus all your operating expenses. You do not include your mortgage, because what the hope is that on retirement in 20 years, I'll not have a mortgage payment on those investment properties as well. So you take your rent minus your operating expenses, not including mortgage. That should be $2,500 per month, and I ensure that for each of my investment properties. I sell one and pay off the other 2 early, because I have 30-year mortgages on that. Let's say if I buy 3, I sell 1, use those profits and pay the capital gain tax and roll it over into the other properties and almost make it mortgage free in 20 years. So this is a very advanced calculation. You can all do that on your own, or when you reach out to the team, we'll do that for you. So the income from these 2 properties would be about $109,518. And if you're wondering how is that possible, because $2,500 times 2 is $5,000 per month, times 12 is $60,000. This is today. In 20 years, with inflation, the rents will increase. Obviously, the expenses will also increase, but your income will overall increase a lot more, and it will not be $60,000, because $60,000 is today. So yeah, that's how I get this number, and my annual income would be $223,000, which is above my target of $200,000. If I have to retire by 50, things get a lot more crazier, and now I can't just do it with a job, which is exactly why I don't have a job. I have to prepay $35,000 per year of additional payments to pay off my primary home in 13 years. That's a crazy, crazy amount of money to put towards your home, but I intend to do that. Even though I know that my math would work out better if I invest that money into S&P 500. But like I said, I always find ways of making more money. I would encourage anyone who's seeing this. Obviously, this is a very, very aggressive goal. But if you look at the plan, it's not as aggressive. I want to invest $10,000 per month now. Again, when I say it's not as aggressive, it's not as aggressive if you are a business owner who has a good business going on the side. I would be investing, and I've already started doing that, $10,000 per month for the next 13 years at an 8% year-on-year return. This is a crazy amount of money to put towards stock market, but if you look at my video on my investing strategy for 2025, I already have a target of putting almost $100,000 in the stock market this year. That portfolio would go to about $3 million in 13 years. Again, my starting balance is not 0. So if you do this maths, putting starting balance as 0, you'll probably not get 3 million. My starting balance is almost $95,000 to $100,000 that I already have in investments. And my income from that at a 4% rule again will be about $121,000. And instead of buying 3 cash flow properties, I now would be buying 4 cash flow properties, again with the same NOI, but I'll sell off 2 to pay off the other 2 early. And I'll get to an income in 13 years of about $80,000 per year from those 2 properties, and my annual income will again be over $200,000. This is the plan that we make for each one of our clients. Now, if you want to retire at 65 in 30 years, or you want to retire in 10 years before 50, It's a mathematical problem, and we try to solve that using the Excel that I just showed you. I just don't stop there. My clients within Grow Nation are not only getting a personalized plan on how to pay off their mortgage early while keeping their investments intact, but they're also getting access to my Grow Nation Startup Accelerator, which is launching on April 20th. And that accelerator would help people who are more ambitious, just like me, who want to pay off their mortgage in half the time, or who want to double down on their stock investing or their real estate investments. They would get a means to make more income, start and build a 7-figure business, and not only retire early but create wealth for generations to come. That's all I have for today. मिलते हैं अगली वीडियो में, तब तक के लिए बाय बाय.